Good afternoon. My name is Kyle Thiem, coming from you not live, but rather recorded from the National Weather Service office in Atlanta, Peachtree City. This is your weekly weather briefing for Thursday, July 8th, 2021. So looking at some of the highlights that we'll talk about for the upcoming presentation. We're waving goodbye to Tropical Storm Elsa as it continues to make its way up the eastern coast. No longer set to have any impacts for our forecast area. And as far as the forecast ahead, it looks like we're going to be stuck in the soup. There's really no big air mass changes in the forecast, which means a relatively steady forecast from day to day, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But as we look at some of the current conditions out there, here's a loop of the overall satellite feed from the last 3 hours, going through the last 3 hours of Thursday morning. And you can see the circulation there in South Carolina transitioning into North Carolina. That is Tropical Storm Elsa as it continues to make its way up towards the northeast. There's also a low pressure system around the Brownsville, Corpus Christi area of Texas that's bringing in a lot of moisture into the southeast over the coming days as well. But for us, over our forecast area, we have mostly cloudy skies that will begin breaking up throughout the day as we get that convective mixing going on, which will then increase rain chances throughout the rest of the afternoon. Looking a little bit closer to the ground here, we see temperatures are now climbing up into the 80s for the forecast area with those westerly winds. And we see out towards the east remnants of some of the rain bands of Elsa as they make their way inland across South Carolina, and see a lot of residual watches and warnings going on out east too as that storm continues to make its way up towards the east. Just to recap right now, we can see as of 8 a.m. the center of Tropical Storm Elsa was located there in South Carolina, but by the time we get into this time tomorrow afternoon, that will make its way all the way up into New England before moving off across the Atlantic for the rest of its life cycle. And while we didn't have very much impacts for our area, we are happy to continue letting it go. All right, as far as the rainfall, which was the biggest impact for our area from Tropical Storm Elsa, we did have a few rain bands coming up this way, but in all, relatively minor rainfall totals for our area. We can see closer to the coastline. They did, in several spots, receive over 6 inches of rain over the last 48 hours, but in general, for our forecast area, the highest totals seem to be located towards the southwest and to the west of the Macon area, where they did receive somewhere between 2.5 and 3 inches in those areas. But in general, less than 2 inches across the forecast area. Several spots only receiving 1/2 inch or so. But the good news is for the 5-day tropical outlook, there are no current tropical areas of interest. So as of right now, we look to be pretty steady state for the next 7 days. And here's a look at the next 7 days starting out for today, this afternoon. We can see where Tropical Storm Elsa is going to be located there in central North Carolina as we get into this afternoon with quite a bit of widespread showers and thunderstorms across the eastern United States. There's a low pressure center located across the Great Lakes area with a frontal system associated with it. And while it will try going into Friday and then into Saturday to dip down this way, we're not going to have any luck. Most of the storm systems and the fronts will stay well north of the area. As we get into Saturday, we start seeing a high pressure starting to build in across the Gulf states. That continues into Sunday and Monday as we basically just get a lot of southerly low-level air that's going to be pumping in warm, moist air off of the Gulf area. And while there is another low pressure that tries to spin up, it will bring a cold front in through the Ozarks and the Central Plains. But before it can reach down this way, it does look to wrap up and weaken, and therefore keeping us in this warm, moist air mass going in through the rest of the week. And just to give a sense of the steady, warm, moist forecasting ahead, here's a look at the national blend of models, high and low temperatures for the Atlanta area, and we can see just how steady the forecast is. This is looking at highs every day for the next 10 days going into next weekend, where we have steady highs in the mid to upper 80s and steady lows around 70 degrees. Looking at some other weather values for the Atlanta area, we can see the steady diurnal swings where we have the temperatures climbing up into the mid-80s in the afternoon, dropping down to around 70 at night. We can also see our dew points, which remain in the upper 50s to near 70 as well. Not much change or variation in there from day to day. You can also see humidities stay around near saturated overnight once we get into the time where we get into our low temperatures in the early morning. Then in the afternoon, each and every day, it looks like we remain just at or above 50% with at least partly, if not mostly, covered skies. Just to have a sense of the total atmospheric moisture, this is looking at the variable precipitable water. This variable would be the amount of water within the atmosphere over any given point if you were to completely take all the water out and measure it in liquid form. And while I don't want to get too technical with this, this is looking at the European ensemble members. This is 50 different members that make up the ensemble Euro model. And while I know it's hard to see some of the values in there, we see as we advance in time, as we go over towards the right, we're seeing colors very consistent within this yellow and beige color. What this matches up with is about 1.5 to 2 inches of precipitable water over the Atlanta area for the next almost 2 weeks, with very little indication that there's going to be any variance from that. Usually these values of 1.5 to 2 inches of precipitable water tend to equate to a moist Gulf air mass. And so what this is trying to show is that that moist Gulf air mass is going to sit over our area for potentially a couple weeks, with values staying within that 1.5 to 2 inch range with very little variation from that. So it basically means that we'll be repeating the forecast day after day with no major synoptic scale influences from that. We can see as we look at our rain chances going forward for the next week. Here's a look at Thursday night, Friday night, varying between 40 to 70% each day, with slightly higher chances up for northern Georgia. There's a look at Saturday and Saturday night. Here's Sunday, yet again around 60 for central Georgia, 70 for northern Georgia. Then on Monday here, same thing, 50s to 60s for central Georgia, 60 to 70% for northern Georgia. Tuesday again ranging between 40 and 60%. And then finally Wednesday here with a more widespread 40 to 50% across the area. So basically, given on each day, we're between 40 to 70% chance of rain in the afternoons and early evenings each and every day, with some variance depending on the day and location, with North Georgia having slightly higher percentages on average throughout the week. Highest chances again will be in the afternoon and early evening. With this, because we are also so moist, we are expecting scattered thunderstorms likely each day. But given the profiles in the atmosphere and the amount of moisture that we have, these scattered thunderstorms should remain relatively weak for the week ahead, with no severe storms expected at this time. Overall, looking at the 7-day forecast rainfall, relatively meager amounts going across the area, on average somewhere between 0.5 to 1.5 inches across our county warning forecast area, with some of the higher amounts expected to be focused more in northern Georgia, and especially in the mountainous regions where some upslope flow with moist air going up and over the mountains could produce a little bit more rain consistently in those areas. Then looking again for next week, seeing what the outlooks look like. Precipitation somewhere around normal, as well as temperatures. Again, looking at the very steady, consistent forecasts with temperatures and precipitation each and every day. So in summary, we are letting go of Tropical Storm Elsa as it continues to make its way up the eastern coastline, with no further impacts expected for our forecast area. And then it seems like every day we just get stuck on repeat, with each day continuing to be like the last, minus whether you have a chance for a storm at your particular location or not. But in general, area-wide, it's pretty much the same each and every day, with highs in the mid 80s to low 90s. Low 90s are going to be mostly concentrated in and around the Macon and Vidalia areas. Lows area-wide around 70 degrees every night, with mid-rain chances each day between 40 and 70%. Also seeing some scattered weak diurnal storms expected each day, but nothing really severe in the outlook for the next 7 days expected at this time. All right, so thank you for hanging with us. Here's our contact information if you need to get a hold of us. Feel free to reach out through any of our social media channels by phone or email. And with that, we will see you next week. Thank you very much.